3 years ago, my father was sitting in an oncologist's office being told his PSA levels were climbing and his options were narrowing. He was 67. He was scared, and like most people, he looked to medicine for the answer. What he didn't know, what neither of us knew, was that the most powerful cancer-fighting compounds on Earth weren't waiting in a prescription bottle. They were already growing in a garden, and they'd been written about for thousands of years. Within 8 months of incorporating specific biblical plants into his daily routine, his inflammation markers dropped significantly, his energy returned, and his doctors, cautiously, carefully, started using the word stabilized. Now, I'm not here to make you a medical promise. What I am here to do is show you what modern science is now catching up to. Research published in peer-reviewed journals confirming that these ancient plants contain compounds actively being studied for their ability to suppress tumor growth, trigger cancer cell death, and protect healthy tissue. The Bible wasn't just a spiritual guide. It was, it turns out, a pharmacopoeia. And when you understand why these plants work at a cellular level, you'll never look at your garden the same way again. Now, before we get into the list, I want you to understand where this knowledge comes from, because it matters. The Bible references over 100 plants by name: hyssop, frankincense, fenugreek, turmeric's ancient cousin. These weren't decorative details. In a world without hospitals, without pharmacies, without insurance networks, plants were the medicine. Healers, priests, and ordinary families cultivated them because survival depended on it. That necessity sharpened their knowledge over generations in a way no modern clinical trial can fully replicate. And here's what's remarkable. For centuries, mainstream science largely dismissed these plants as folklore. Interesting perhaps, primitive certainly, not serious medicine. Then the research started coming in. Peer-reviewed studies out of Johns Hopkins, the National Cancer Institute, and research universities across Europe and Asia began isolating the exact compounds in these biblical plants, the flavonoids, the terpenoids, the sulfur-based molecules, and testing them directly against cancer cells in laboratory conditions. The results didn't just surprise researchers. In several cases, they stopped them cold. These aren't fringe studies buried in obscure journals. This is reproducible, published, peer-reviewed science finally catching up to what ancient healers already knew. The knowledge was never lost. It was just waiting to be proven. So here's what you need to understand before we get into the plants themselves, because once you grasp this, everything else clicks into place. Cancer, at its most fundamental level, is a breakdown in cellular communication. Healthy cells follow instructions. They grow, they divide, they die on schedule in a process called apoptosis. Cancer cells ignore those instructions. They grow when they shouldn't, they refuse to die, and they hijack the body's own blood supply to feed themselves. What modern researchers discovered, and what makes these biblical plants so extraordinary, is that many of them contain compounds that intervene in that process at multiple points simultaneously. Let me give you 3 mechanisms that keep appearing across the research. The first is apoptosis induction. Certain plant compounds essentially reactivate the cancer cell's self-destruct sequence, the one the cancer switched off. They don't attack the cell from outside. They remind it of what it was always supposed to do. The second is angiogenesis inhibition. Tumors need new blood vessels to grow. Several biblical plant compounds have been shown in laboratory studies to block the signals tumors send to recruit that blood supply. Starved of nutrients, tumor growth slows. The third is inflammation suppression. Chronic inflammation is now understood to be one of the primary environments in which cancer thrives. It's the soil cancer prefers to grow in. Many of the plants we're about to cover contain powerful anti-inflammatory compounds that essentially make the body a hostile environment for tumor development. Now, and this is important, these mechanisms have been observed in laboratory and early clinical settings. This is not a claim that any single plant cures cancer. What the science is saying is that these compounds interact with cancer biology in ways that are significant, measurable, and worthy of serious medical attention. The ancient world didn't know the terminology. They didn't know what apoptosis was, but they knew what worked. And now, finally, we do too. All right, let's get into the plants. Now, before I reveal the first plant, I want to make sure you stay with me all the way to the end, because number 7 on this list is the one that genuinely stopped me when I first read the research. The clinical data behind it is unlike anything else we'll cover today. All right, let's get into it. Plant number 1, frankincense, Boswellia sacra. This is the one that opens most researchers' eyes to this entire field. Frankincense isn't just a gift brought to a manger. It's one of the most studied plant compounds in oncology right now. The active molecule is called AKBA, acetyl-11-keto-beta-boswellic acid, and in multiple peer-reviewed studies, it has demonstrated the ability to target cancer cells while leaving healthy cells unharmed. That selectivity is what makes it extraordinary. Most conventional treatments don't discriminate. AKBA appears to. It's been studied specifically against brain cancer, breast cancer, and colon cancer cells with results researchers describe as significant. How to use it? Look for Boswellia serrata supplements standardized to contain at least 30% AKBA. Typical studied dosages range from 300 to 500 milligrams daily. Do not confuse it with generic frankincense essential oil. The oil is not the same as the standardized extract used in research. Plant number 2, turmeric, Curcuma longa. Turmeric appears more than almost any other plant in the current cancer research literature, and its biblical roots run deep, closely related to the sweet cane and aromatic spices referenced throughout Scripture. Its active compound, curcumin, has been studied against over a dozen cancer types. Here's the mechanism. Curcumin simultaneously suppresses NF-kappa B, a protein complex that promotes tumor survival, while activating apoptosis pathways in cancer cells. It attacks the problem from both directions at once. Common mistake warning. Curcumin has notoriously poor bioavailability on its own. Your body struggles to absorb it. Always take it with black pepper extract, piperine, which increases absorption by up to 2,000%. Without it, you are wasting most of what you consume. Plant number 3, figs, Ficus cariga. Figs are mentioned over 50 times in the Bible. They were a staple of ancient healing traditions across the Middle East. Modern research has now identified why. Figulatus, the milky sap from unripe figs and fig leaves, contains a compound called ficin, alongside a unique combination of flavonoids and polyphenols that have shown direct cytotoxic activity against cancer cell lines in laboratory studies. Fig leaf extract in particular has been studied for its effects on liver cancer, cervical cancer, and breast cancer cells. How to use it? Fresh fig leaves brewed as a tea, 3 to 4 leaves per cup, is the traditional preparation most closely aligned with how the extract has been studied. Dried fig leaf supplements are also available. Avoid relying solely on the fruit itself, which contains lower concentrations of the active compounds than the leaves. Plant number 4, garlic, Allium sativum. Scripture references garlic directly in Numbers 11:5. And ancient Egyptian medical papyri, which overlap significantly with biblical era knowledge, list garlic in over 22 medicinal preparations. Modern science has been validating that instinct for decades. Garlic's primary active compound, allicin, is released when the clove is crushed or chopped. It has demonstrated anti-tumor activity in studies focused on stomach, colorectal, and prostate cancers. The mechanism involves both direct cancer cell inhibition and significant immune system upregulation. Critical preparation note: crush or chop your garlic and wait 10 full minutes before cooking or consuming it. This waiting period allows the enzyme reaction that produces allicin to complete. Cooking garlic immediately after cutting destroys the enzyme before allicin can form. 10 minutes. Don't skip it. Plant number 5. Hyssop, Hyssopsis officinalis. Hyssop is one of the most frequently mentioned medicinal plants in the entire Bible, used in purification rituals, healing ceremonies, and specifically referenced in Psalm 51. For most of modern history, those references were treated as symbolic. Then researchers started analyzing hyssop's chemical profile. It contains rosmarinic acid, flavonoids including diosmin and hesperidin, and volatile oils with demonstrated anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Recent studies have shown hyssop extract inhibiting the growth of certain cancer cell lines and demonstrating meaningful antioxidant activity that protects cellular DNA from oxidative damage, one of the primary drivers of cancer initiation. How to use it? Hyssop tea made from dried aerial parts is the most traditional and accessible form. 2 cups daily is the preparation used in most observational studies. It is also available as a tincture. Plant number 6, pomegranate, Punica granatum. The pomegranate appears throughout biblical text as a symbol of life, abundance, and healing, and the science behind that symbolism is now substantial. Pomegranate contains L-gitannins, which the gut converts into a compound called urolithin A. Urolithin A has shown remarkable activity in prostate cancer research specifically, with one study demonstrating significant slowing of PSA doubling time in men with recurrent prostate cancer. It also contains punicalagins, antioxidants so potent they make red wine and green tea look modest by comparison. How to use it? Whole pomegranate juice, not from concentrate, no added sugar, is the preparation used in clinical research, 8 ounces daily. The peel extract in supplement form contains even higher concentrations of L-gitannins if juice is not practical. Plant number 7, black seed, Nigella sativa. This is the one I mentioned earlier. Stay with me here, because the research behind this plant is unlike anything else on this list. Nigella sativa, referenced in Isaiah as black cumin and described by the prophet as a cure for everything except death, contains a compound called thymoquinone, and thymoquinone has now been studied in relation to over 40 different cancer types. The findings are extraordinary. It has demonstrated the ability to induce apoptosis in cancer cells, inhibit metastasis, the spread of cancer to other organs, suppress angiogenesis, and enhance the effectiveness of conventional chemotherapy drugs when used alongside them. Researchers at the Cancer Immunobiology Laboratory in South Carolina described its activity as unparalleled among plant-derived compounds. How to use it? Cold-pressed black seed oil, 1 teaspoon twice daily, is the most studied oral preparation. Standardized thymoquinone supplements are also available. Do not heat the oil. Heat degrades thymoquinone rapidly. Plant number 8, aloe vera, Aloe barbadensis. Aloe is referenced in the Gospel of John, used in the preparation of Christ's burial, reflecting its deep sacred status. Ancient Egyptian and Hebrew healers used it extensively for internal and external conditions alike. Modern research has identified a compound in aloe called aloe-imodin, which has shown selective toxicity against certain cancer cell lines, specifically neuroectodermal tumors, without equivalent toxicity to normal cells. Additionally, asamanin, a polysaccharide found in aloe gel, has demonstrated meaningful immune-stimulating activity, which is increasingly understood as central to the body's natural cancer surveillance system. Common mistake warning. The aloe you buy in supermarkets for sunburn is not the same preparation studied in cancer research. Look for inner leaf aloe vera gel, cold-processed, preservative-free, or grow your own and consume the inner gel directly. Plant number 9. Flaxseed, Linum usitatissimum. Flax was cultivated extensively throughout the biblical world, referenced in Exodus and Joshua, woven into linen, pressed into oil, and used medicinally for millennia. It is one of the richest sources of lignans on Earth, plant compounds that the body converts into enterolignans, which have demonstrated the ability to block estrogen receptors implicated in hormone-driven cancers. Multiple studies have specifically examined flaxseed's role in breast cancer, with findings showing reduced tumor growth rates and increased cancer cell death in women consuming whole ground flaxseed daily. How to use it? 2 tablespoons of freshly ground flaxseed daily, added to smoothies, yogurt, or oatmeal. Whole seeds pass largely undigested. Pre-ground flaxseed oxidizes quickly. Grind fresh, store in the refrigerator, and use within 1 week. Plant number 10, grapes, Vitis vinifera. The vine is perhaps the most pervasive symbol in all of Scripture, from Noah's vineyard to the Last Supper. And embedded in the skin and seeds of grapes is a compound that has generated enormous excitement in cancer research, resveratrol. Resveratrol has been studied for its ability to interfere with all 3 stages of cancer development: initiation, promotion, and progression. It activates tumor suppressor genes, inhibits cancer cell proliferation, and has shown particular promise in colorectal and skin cancer research. How to use it? Whole grape consumption, seeds included where possible, provides resveratrol alongside the full spectrum of synergistic flavonoids. For therapeutic concentrations, trans resveratrol, standardized to 99% purity, is the form used in clinical research. Red grape skin extract is an effective and more affordable alternative. 10 plants, thousands of years of documented use, and now, finally, the science to explain why. Now, I promised at the start that I'd give you something extra for staying all the way through, and here it is. I know that list of 10 plants can feel overwhelming. Different preparations, different dosages, different sourcing considerations. If you're someone who just lost a family member to cancer, or you're sitting with a diagnosis yourself right now, the last thing you need is a complicated protocol that requires 3 hours of research before you can even begin. So here's the stripped-down version. The essential 4. If you do nothing else from everything we've covered today, start here. First, turmeric and black pepper, every single day. 1 teaspoon of high-quality turmeric powder with a pinch of black pepper stirred into warm water, milk, or added to your food. That's it. You don't need a supplement, you don't need a specialist. You need a spice rack and 10 seconds of your morning. This single combination gives you curcumin with real bioavailability, the anti-inflammatory and pro-apoptotic compound that appears in more cancer studies than almost anything else on this list. Second, crushed garlic daily, 10-minute rule. 1 to 2 cloves, crush them, wait 10 minutes, eat them raw in a salad dressing, mixed into food, or swallowed with water if the taste is too strong. The 10-minute rule is non-negotiable. This is the single most common mistake people make with garlic, and it's the difference between an active compound and an inert one. Third, ground flaxseed, 2 tablespoons in your breakfast. Buy whole flax seeds and a small coffee grinder, 30 seconds every morning. Add it to oatmeal, yogurt, or a smoothie. This is one of the most evidence-backed interventions for hormone-driven cancers specifically, and it costs almost nothing. Fourth, pomegranate juice. 8 ounces, no concentrate, no added sugar. If you can only add 1 liquid to your daily routine, make it this. The L-glutannin content in real pomegranate juice is unmatched by almost any other food source, and the prostate cancer research behind it specifically is some of the most compelling in this entire field. 4 things: turmeric with pepper, garlic with the 10-minute rule, ground flaxseed, pomegranate juice. You can implement all 4 starting tomorrow morning, spending less than $15 without a single prescription or specialist appointment. That is what it looks like when ancient wisdom meets modern convenience, and it was sitting in your kitchen the whole time. Now I want to come back to where we started, because my father's story didn't end in that oncologist office. 18 months after he began incorporating these plants consistently, not perfectly, not with military discipline, but consistently, his follow-up results came back in a range his doctor described as unexpectedly stable. His inflammation markers were the lowest they'd been in over a decade. He was sleeping through the night. He was back in his garden. Was it solely the plants? I can't tell you that with certainty. He also changed his diet more broadly, reduced his stress, and stayed closely monitored by his medical team. I'm not here to oversimplify a complex disease. What I can tell you is that he started asking his oncologist about curcumin, about boswellia, about black seed oil, and his oncologist didn't dismiss him. He pulled up the research alongside him. That moment, a conventional oncologist sitting with a patient, reading the same peer-reviewed studies we've discussed today, told me everything I needed to know about how much this field has shifted. And it's not just my father. Since I first shared this research with my community, hundreds of people have written in. People managing post-treatment recovery, people supporting parents through diagnoses, people who simply decided they weren't going to wait passively. The comment that stopped me completely was this: I finally feel like I'm doing something. That's what this knowledge is supposed to do. If this video gave you something valuable, something you're going to act on, hit that like button and subscribe. Because this is what we do here. We go back to the source, we follow the science, and we take our health into our own hands.